Rick Crawford, chair of the House Intelligence Committee and a member of the Gang of Eight. He was briefed on the capture of Maduro by top Trump administration officials just a short time ago. They included Secretary of State Rubio, Secretary of War Hegseth, Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Dan Kane, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and Attorney General Pam Bondi. Thank you very much. Good to have you with us, Congressman. You're very astute and you have a deep knowledge of this part of the world and have studied it very closely. Give me a sense, I know this was a classified briefing, but of what you can share in general about what the message is.
What I will share is that what has been put out there in the open source, and that is by our officials, people like Secretary Rubio and Secretary Hegseth, all of that was consistent with what was briefed yesterday. And obviously I can't get into any classified details, but I would hope that the American people would understand that it was entirely consistent with what they've heard, with obviously more classified details being shared. But beyond that, it's been a very consistent message from the administration and highly consistent with what we've heard in the open source.
You heard Congressman Jeffries there saying that this should have been at least transmitted to a small, closely held group because they're the closest to the American people. What's your response to that, Congressman?
Well, there is no requirement for advance notification, number one. Number two, this was a DOJ operation in that this was essentially serving a warrant issued by a federal judge to go and take Maduro and his wife into custody pursuant to a grand jury indictment. This was not necessarily, there was no advance notice requirement for Congress. There was notification after the fact, which, according to the Constitution, only requires 45 days, or the War Powers Act only requires 45 days notice within the window of taking that action. So, look, if I'm conducting an operation of this nature, whether it's a DOJ operation or a Department of War operation, if I'm responsible for the success of that mission, I want to limit the universe of people who know about it for OPSEC, operational security purposes. So we want to make sure that the OPSEC is tight and that very few people know about it so that we have a higher degree of success rate. And that was what was taking place here. It's not as though that the president is trying to keep Congress in the dark. He knew that Congress was going to know about this. It's a question of, can you put the egos away long enough to recognize that you have to maintain a high degree of OPSEC and then get the brief on what happened after the fact? Yeah. Because we can't have people running the risk of people going to the sticks immediately and saying, hey, you won't believe what the president just told me. Yeah, that has happened in the past.
Absolutely, it's happened in the past.
Yeah.
And these same individuals are grateful that all of our U.S. military returned safely back to the United States, which may not have happened if there had been a lot of transparency ahead of this operation. He was clearly a wanted individual by the Department of Justice. Let me ask you about this headline from the Wall Street Journal. CIA concluded regime loyalists were best placed to lead Venezuela after Maduro. So we have seen that there is that structure that is still in place, that the vice president was elevated to the presidency. What is your sense of where the leadership goes next? And obviously, you know, what you talked about before, this hope that communist governments fall across the region would require that they fall first.
Yeah, so I think what we're going to see here in Venezuela is right now we're seeing Delcy Rodriguez is stepping up as the vice president and filling that power void, if you will, consistent with the succession that would take place. I mean, she's the vice president. Okay, that's fine. But I think what we would like to see there, obviously, is free and fair election. We want to see self-determination in Venezuela, and we want to see that in countries throughout the Western Hemisphere. We're free and fair elections. Heck, I was just in Honduras back in November as a certified election monitor and watched that election take place in Honduras. And so this is about seeing that happen across the hemisphere. And what we know about this is that communism is being roundly rejected from Peru to Chile to Honduras. I mean, heck, the only place they're embracing it is in New York. And so we can do without that at home. But the reality is that People like Ortega in Nicaragua and Diaz-Canel in Cuba right now are very anxious as they're watching what's taking place in Venezuela.
Chairman Crawford of the House Intelligence Committee, thank you very much. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.